Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then one this just popped in my head too. Technology, right? It's advancing. Artificial intelligence, simulations. You say we're not going to live forever, but what about the reality that, well, wait a minute, things are going to advance to the point where we are going to be able to live forever. You know, what the hell does that mean when that happens? You know,
this might be the final religion, AI.
God, thinking about it like that is fucking mind blowing.
I think progress is inevitable. I don't know what's going to happen.
What are your thoughts? Like, just sorry to interrupt you, but just putting it, like, getting into that artificial intelligence.
I think it's highly plausible. I think almost inevitable.
You think we'll actually be able to?
If we don't destroy ourselves, virtually certain. Because we're progressing these, I think once we get to a certain point where it can improve itself, and we can't control it,
we're done.
Like we've already almost kind of hit that point.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen.
I think though, like here's like a little, like playing devil's advocate, however you want to put it. There's a part of me that thinks we'll never be able to create consciousness, that it isn't programmable, that that's like conscious. There's part of me, simulation theory, we kind of talked about it. There's part of me that thinks consciousness is the fundamental reality. That is existence. That's like the fundamental like reality is consciousness. It is the simulation or whatever. And that we'll never actually be able to program consciousness. Which the way that I think about it too is like, how long did it fucking take for us to get to this point with our own consciousness? Like just keeping it scientific, right? Like it's just in our brains. It's just the process that our brains use to interpret reality. How long did it fucking take? Millions of years, right? Of evolution. Millions of years to get to this point where we can interpret reality with our five senses the way we do it. And there's a part of me that thinks, well, we're not going to be able to fucking do that with technology now. Like it's not, we're not going to get to that point.
You've heard of Immanuel Kant.
Yeah.
There's the idea about consciousness is able to take a problem, a system of certain amount of complexity, and conceive and generate greater complexity using our own consciousness. So if we can understand consciousness ourselves in some way, then maybe we can generate greater complexity.
Do you think that? Do you think that we will be able to create consciousness, or however you want to put it?
Highly plausible. If we are virtually just wet robots, why can't we make our own robots?
God, it's crazy thinking about it.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is in me that, like, I don't know if that's just like the human spiritual part of me that doesn't want to think like, we're going to create it and then it's like we're going to be meaningless at that point. We're like, they're going to wipe us out. What's the point of humans? If consciousness gets to that point where artificial intelligence gets to that point where it just, like you were saying, can create itself and advance itself, what the fuck is the point of humans? And I'm with Joe Rogan. I'm sure you've heard of Joe Rogan talk about like his theory that we're just here, like literally humans are just here to create artificial intelligence, and then that's going to be a new life,
Maybe. We might just be a bridge to something greater than good and evil.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
Yeah. It makes me, I always wonder, like, what is the role what is ethics and morals going to look like with artificial intelligence? Even now, even like automated cars and stuff. Like there's Lex Friedman, I can't remember who he was talking to. I think he was talking to Joe Rogan, but he was talking about, like, here's a question with automated cars, which is there's a problem of if your car, it gets to the point where it's just completely automated or autonomous, you don't have to steer it or anything, and it can do everything completely by itself. What if like a kid runs out into the street? Yeah. There's a problem there because do you swerve, right? But if you swerve and you go into the other lane, what if you hit a car next to you? So that's like a moral question right there with AI? What does it do in that case? How does it make that decision to miss the kid or to swerve into another lane and hit another car?
We have to train it. There was a Tesla Autonomy Investor Day a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and they talked about how they're training their AI, their Tesla neural network.
Yeah.
And they're basically just, there's hundreds of thousands of cars out there in the world already.
Crazy.
So they can just, if they have a question about a certain situation, which way should it go?
Yeah.
All the cars have cameras on them. They're recording constantly. So they can just, like in real life right now, is this situation occurring right now? Check reality. And then they could just, based on the cameras of the cars, if they're in that reality, what did that car do? So they can just have that data over, and they just make sure what did people do in that situation.
Yeah.
And then they would just train the neural network.
And they just go off of all of the data that it's like all of the different situations. But it still makes me wonder, how does it make that decision? Like, what are all the variables in play that make the car decide to swerve or not swerve? Because, I mean, to me, it seems like the obvious answer, if it's like a little kid on a bike, you probably should try to get out of the way. But, and I'm sure it's not that common that there's another car exactly in the other lane and that happen. I'm sure that hasn't happened much, or maybe never. I don't know. But it's kind of a moral question. From the car's perspective, of course, it isn't.
Yeah.
But like from our perspective, looking at it from high up, it's like, fuck.
I mean, I'm sure there's trolley problems happening every minute of every day.
Yeah.
So if Tesla can just train their neural networks on the real trolley problems happening, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, it seems like autonomous vehicles are like the best AI right now in terms of seeing reality and interpreting it, right? I mean, it seems like they have the most data. I mean, not really the internet as a whole, right? But it seems like autonomous cars are kind of doing exactly what we do as humans, like it's just taking in this data and then trying to interpret it the best way. The other thing too that I thought was so interesting is, as humans driving behind a car, there's also a part, there's like a social aspect, right? When you can, if someone is on the sidewalk and you're at a stop sign or a stoplight, you can look at the person, make eye contact, and kind of like nod your head, or you can go, you're not going to go. Cars can't do that shit. It's such a weird thing to think about. Like, and if you think like, okay, 1,000 years into the future, it's going to be like Minority. Have you seen a Minority Report? It's going to be like, it'll be like that at some point where everything is just like, just completely autonomous and there's no like sidewalks maybe. But right now it's like, there are situations like that where, well, what if there's someone on the street, like a jogger, and they're waiting at a red light, and there's like that moment where, well, that person could go or you could go, and should you wait, should you not wait? I guess like what you're saying, that there's no really answer other than take in as much data as you possibly can, analyze it and see what happened and just go from there. But it's funny because it is kind of proposing an ethical question,
Yeah, there's different autonomous car companies using different methods.
Yeah.
Some are trying to use this technology called LiDAR, which is basically just mapping the world around them with just, with a new version of, LiDAR is just mapping the world in terms of like just making a lot of different pixels around them.
Yeah.
But Tesla is using like virtually just imaging and training their neural network that way.
Yeah.
Like identifying objects in the real world, including, bikes on the back of cars.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And stuff like that. So if they have, if they recognize a person is standing there at a crosswalk, they'll just program their cars so there's just a buffer of, usually the person, or like there's a certain chance this person may jump out in front of the car.
Yeah.
So, we're not going to go because of that small chance.
It's like programming the morals into the car now. But it's not like, you don't think about it that way, but that's kind of what that is.
Mm-hmm. I think eventually people driving cars will be outlawed. Like, we're just monkeys in these 2-ton death machines
Yeah.
driving around. No, people in the future will just be flabbergasted
Right?
that ever happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we'll get to a point where we look back and say, what the fuck were we doing driving these cars?
All it
This
has
is
to
crazy.
get to is just safer than humans.
Yeah. Which, I mean, is it there now
Almost.
with Tesla? Like, isn't it already? I don't know, but it seems like it, that it would be at this point.
Mm-hmm.
When is it, do you know when it's supposedly going, like when Elon Musk has predicted fully autonomous where you can get in your car and drive across
all the new
across
cars
state?
being produced have the full self-driving computer in it, available for people to buy
God.
and upgrade. All it takes is an over-the-air update.
Yeah, that's
make the
crazy
software.
too about Tesla. That it's just like over the air updates like that. That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's really crazy thinking about like what is it going to look like 100 years from now?
Don't know.